Hey everyone, good morning from the Blue Ridge in North Carolina. I wanted to spend, and I'm timing myself this time, only 5 minutes on this one threshold that, if held, will save you from 1,000 exhausting negotiations. So this is in preparation for, on October 1st, I'm holding a boundaries intensive entitled None Shall Pass. You are all welcome to join. We're going to spend about 3 hours going deep into this and really cultivating and developing it, the felt sense of it and how it reflects into our current life situations. However, I can spend 4 minutes with you, and because this is part of natural law and divine law, because this is just you inhabiting your own dominion, it can be plenty, right? I just want to remind you that you do have one threshold, that if you hold it, you have one boundary, that if you hold it, it will save you from 1,000 exhausting negotiations. It will save you from losing yourself. It will save you. It will potentize you so that you can have peace, so that you can truly know yourself. This threshold, I call it the grand perimeter, now that we've been deepening it into in the third year in the school. The grand perimeter, it is the place, the first boundary, where basically you just decide whether or not something may or may not enter. It sounds really simple, but this has got to be one of the most, well, it is the most assaulted boundary in our lives, in our world. But in general, I mean, it is under a constant barrage of pressure, of attack, of desperation, of push, of pull. I mean, especially now, as the world is in its bewildering transformation. Here's what that threshold kind of sounds like, feels like. It's none shall pass. That's the statement of it. Everything has to stop there and await your permission, your invitation, or your refusal of entry. It's that simple, right? And it is that simple. Things get really complicated because many of us have abdicated that. We just, conditioning, all the experiences we've had, the way that our culture works, it's almost like it's an invisibility, right? So we're not actually leaning into it. We're not actually filling up the space of our own realm here to meet it and to give it the strength that it needs so that it can inform us, right? These boundaries, and you can watch I'll put a link to some other videos. I talk about boundaries a lot in the school. These boundaries, this one in particular, it's not something you effort to hold up. It's something you lean into. It is instinctual. It is given. It is birthright. I mean, this is the threshold. This is the gateway into your being, your heart, your mind, your body, your spirit, everything, right? So that one boundary, how you know a lot of times that something's crossed that boundary is that you're wrestling with it, and wrestling and wrestling and wrestling, and nothing's getting resolved. What that usually means to me, and it's in the most simple form, is that, oh, this is actually just, it crossed the first threshold and it shouldn't have, right? It's taking, I work on this a lot because in many of us, we exist a little bit on the spectrum from, on the one end, boundaries that are super rigid, that are isolating, that are conceptual, that make us hard, right? Rather than supple and in a certain amount of pleasure and in response to life. To the other end of the spectrum where, we just don't have any. We're maybe a merging kind of person like me, and it's difficult. It takes a little work to actually inhabit and rest into the containment of ourselves. So that's what we're working with, is we're finding that place in between. And that threshold, the thing about it is that it is a literal, it exists on its own, almost like the way a cell has a cell membrane, right? Of course that would exist. Of course there would be something that would hold you, protect you, keep you in so that you can feel yourself, so that you can know yourself, so that you can decide what will or will not pass, right? So I want to invite you to just take a moment, and you really don't have to think too hard about it. This one can be felt into, and if you Ask your knowing. It's going to come pretty fast. And just notice, what are you wrestling with? Is there some social issue? Is it a person? Is it a something from your past? Is it something from your perceived from your future? Like, notice what your mind and your being and your emotions are kind of in turmoil around, and what they're, especially if it's repetitive and repetitive. Because what happens is when we let something across that threshold, when it's not time, or when they don't actually belong across, it's not time for them, or they don't belong that close to us, just the proximity to us is going to create all of this. It's as simple as, oh, this is actually just too close. When I move it out here, all of a sudden I'm not wrestling with it anymore. All of a sudden I have clarity about it. And this is a lot of what we do in the school. And this is where we find a lot of liberation, is finding our way to simple truths, to deep feminine sensibilities, and wisdom hacks that basically make it so that we release ourselves from entanglement, from confusion, from all the things that are a result of simply not having ever been taught the skillful means of being a human being. Right? I mean, that is as simple as it is, and also as hard as it can be. So I welcome you to come join us for None Shall Pass. It's October 1st. The information is on the website and the newsletter and below in the video. We're going to be together for, I think, 2.5 hours. And we're going to really work with this deeply. So if boundaries, whether you feel very isolated and kind of constricted by your own boundaries, the rigidity in your life, or whether on the other hand you feel like there's a way in which that constant assault is coming too close, and you can feel that you can't quite find yourself, or life is a little too hard, too complicated, and you want to see about restoring it to right proximity and right relationship to you, I invite you to join us. I'd love to have you. In the meantime, be well. Blessed be.